Motoring 2012 on TSN is brought to you by Michelin, a better way forward.
If speed is your thing, then sit down and hang on tight, because this week we're going to check out some vehicles that were born to run. We're going to begin in the beautiful state of Oregon. The locals call it the roller coaster. Officially, it's known as the Oregon Raceway Park. And this week, we're here to drive the brand new Subaru BRZ. Now, the last time we talked with this company, it was having some problems with its image. In fact, some people thought Subaru was a Swedish company. Fine, but this BRZ is a result of about 4 years of collaboration with Toyota that owns a slice of Subaru. So how is a Subaru/Toyota vehicle going to help the company's image? And doesn't Subaru have maybe enough sports cars with the WRX and the STI? And finally, what's a Boxster engine doing in the front of a rear-wheel drive Subaru? Let's find out.
Toyota and Subaru got together and they wanted to build a lightweight rear-wheel drive sports car. We're good at selling sports cars. And so, this seems like a great addition, expanding the product line and having something a little bit different, which is rear-wheel drive, unusual for Subaru.
When I first heard about us developing a rear-wheel drive sports car, my first question was, do we really need that? And after having a chance to drive the Subaru BRZ, absolutely. It's a perfect complement to the WRX and STI.
It has a 2-liter engine with 100 horsepower per liter, so it's a very high specific output. Has 151 foot-pounds of torque. It comes with a 6-speed manual or 6-speed automatic. The brakes are quite aggressive. You have 16-inch vented discs in the front and 15 in the rear. People who come to the track, they may want to change some of those things, but we think right out of the box, this is a track-ready car for anyone.
Now, to most of us, this Boxster engine looks like it's exactly where it should be in the front of the car. However, Subaru engineers have actually lowered the engine and moved it slightly to the rear, and that's all about getting the center of gravity where it should be.
This car really helps highlight the Boxster engine, which, as you know, has horizontally opposed cylinders, has a low center of gravity. So we took the Impreza motor and we moved it further back and also down, and that brings a lot of the weight into the middle of the vehicle, which helps you achieve that handle.
200 horsepower doesn't seem much in our days where middle car have 300, but fairly light, 1,255 kilos, so you got a good combination. They miss a little torque, low revs, but all in all, it'll be a car that will cut up, I'm pretty sure.
BRZ stands for Boxster Rear-Wheel Drive Zenith. So again, highlighting the engine, rear-wheel drive, and Zenith, just because it's the ultimate.
Is that the Japanese translation? Or?
It is.
It doesn't have any of the characteristics of what I was expecting. I was expecting a squirrely, not good-feeling rear-wheel drive car. I was expecting underpowered. I was expecting to hate the automatic. I was expecting a lot of things. It feels good. It has more than enough power at this point in the game to do what it needs to do.
I think people should take it to the track because that's where you can really explore this car to its full abilities. It doesn't want to get away from you. It kind of speaks to you as you're going through the corners. It's not scary at all. It's just a really kind of an intelligent car.
Is this a Subaru or is this a Toyota?
Very good question. It depends who you ask, but it's a Subaru. I mean, the development started back in 2007. Subaru is responsible for the engineering of the vehicle. It's made in a Subaru factory. So a lot of that development, it came from Subaru.
It feels like a Subaru because of the Boxster engine, the drivetrain, the gear shifts were really, really nice.
I think this will appeal to current Subaru owners, but more importantly, I think it'll appeal to a whole new group of people who have not looked at our brand before.
Really fun car. This is a whole new ball game for Subaru.
Imagine me taking a right-wing position on something. You might love it, or you might not. Find out later on Kenzie's Corner.
It was lost and now it's found on this edition of Test Drive the Jaguar XJ. Our
After wandering off into the stylistic wilderness, the Jaguar XJ is back with an eye-catching look, a newfound poise, and if you pony up the dosh, as much vigour as anyone could possibly want. Now, just in case you forget you're driving a Jaguar, well, there are more than 20 logos and/or nameplates in or around the XJ. Now that is what you call overkill. If you want to talk the epitome of class, sit inside an XJ and absorb the cabin. The materials, everything from the leather to the optional carbon fibre, top notch. The instrumentation, very iPad-like, and it's very, very easy on the eyes. This center screen, again touch sensitive, gives you easy access to all of the key functions. Phone, navigation, climate, and of course all of the media that you've got plugged in. However, the defining touch, right here. This iridescent blue analog clock. It really is very nice indeed. The XJ features an advanced suspension with adaptive damping. By monitoring body movement up to 500 times a second, it manages to deliver a consummate ride minus the body roll I expected. As a result, the XJ proved to be remarkably adroit at carving its way through the pylon test. Likewise, the steering delivers first-rate feel and feedback. It is as though the car has borrowed its animate namesake's claws. It digs in and hangs in well beyond rational limits.
One of the things that really helps this XJ in terms of its overall handling goes largely unseen. The vast majority of this body is actually made of aluminum. That means it's 150 kilograms lighter than if it were made of steel. Now that weight advantage, along with an advanced suspension, a great steering system, and these upsized 20-inch wheels and tyres, and you have a car that is as much sports sedan as it is luxury conveyance.
The XJ is powered by a 5-litre V8 that puts out 385 horsepower and 380 pound-feet of torque at a low 3,500 RPM. This wafts the occupants and all of that opulence to 100k in 5.7 seconds, and it accomplishes the 80 to 120 passing move in an equally speedy 4.6 seconds. Throw in the fact it's the model of civility and it makes the right noises when it's worked, and you have a very refined power plant.
As I say, this XJ has got adequate power, 375 horsepower. However, if you want more, you can get it. There are two supercharged derivatives of this 5-litre V8. One puts out 470 horsepower, which is more than enough. However, if enough is not quite enough, you can always opt for the 510 horsepower version. It cuts the 0 to 100k time to 4.9 seconds, which makes this car one seriously quick vehicle, and it would be my choice.
Regardless of engine, the power is put to the road through a 6-speed automatic transmission and the rear wheels. To wring the best out of the engines, the driver has access to normal and sport modes. The latter sharpens the throttle and stretches out the shift points. There is also a winter mode that has the opposite effect, calming things in an attempt to prevent needless wheel spin on a slippery road. If there is a nit, it's with the number of gears. Most of the competition employs 7 or 8 speed boxes. Aside from cutting overall fuel consumption, the extra gears would reduce the spacing between them, which would enhance an already smooth transition.
I really wasn't expecting to be wowed by a luxury sedan, but I was by this XJ, and in ways I really didn't expect. The cabin, well, the fit and finish and what you get inside is simply exquisite. And this car really does do a very credible impersonation of a full-on sports sedan. Heck, I could even live with the average fuel economy, 15.6 litres per 100 kilometres. The one thing I couldn't live with, this key fob. It's way too big, needlessly heavy, and it proved to be a royal pain.
Time to wrap up our long-term Passat, which we sampled in 3 flavors. We began with a 2.5 5-cylinder. This will be the volume vehicle. This is what America wants, although we found it a tad boring. However, it does take regular fuel, unlike the V6. The V6, though, is a true German sports sedan built in the USA, but again, premium gas. Now, diesel is no bargain either, but the 4-cylinder TDI, if I'm buying, this is the one for me and for Graeme. Quiet, lots of torque, and we went close to 900 kilometers on 1 tank of gas, and we do tend to drive our test vehicles with enthusiasm. Now, disappointments? Probably the lack of a backup camera, almost a given in most vehicles today. Now, here's Graeme with his pet peeve.
You're right, Brad, I do have a pet peeve, and it boils down to the steering wheel. Now, the problem manifests itself in 2 very different ways. The first one is actually fairly benign. Because the steering wheel has been shifted to the right, your right hand is actually further away from your body than your left hand. Really not an issue, it's just annoying. Now, the bigger issue comes if you happen to be shorter and you like the seat up and forward, well, you've got a problem. Because the steering column is so far to the right, your knee and the column become one, and it actually impedes access to the brake pedal. If you look on the left side, my knee's got a ton of space. It all boils down to the fact the steering wheel sits to the right. I don't like it.
Now remember, until somebody very short got behind the wheel of this car, we and most other auto journalists have not noticed this. And remember, it's not a mistake. It's done by design. And when we find out why, we'll let you know. The bottom line, although it's American built, the German DNA is embedded in this Passat, and it's worth putting on your shopping list.
This is a 50 caliber bullet, and that is what it looks like with wheels on it. And this is its 2-minute test drive. The Evo 10 comes in a couple of different trim levels, the base GSR and this upgraded MR version. There's a couple of things the MR version gets that the GSR doesn't. A 710-watt Rockford Fosgate audio system, a sunroof, and leather Recaro sports seats. And thankfully, no more Boy Racer rear spoiler. Both get the same turbocharged 2-liter inline-4 screamer of an engine that puts out 291 horsepower and 300 foot-pounds of torque. The GSR comes with a 5-speed manual, but the upgraded MR version boasts a 6-speed, twin-clutch Sportronic shift transmission that offers 3 distinct driving modes. Simply slide the gear lever over to manual and select either Sport or Super Sport, and the MR instantly transforms into a rally driver's dream ride. Its super all-wheel control features active yaw control and a center differential that adjusts its footing on any terrain, in any condition. Monster 4-wheel Brembo brakes and Bilstein shocks complete the performance package. Out on the road, the normal or automatic mode is probably the best. The initial clutch engagement can be a little jerky, especially in city streets, and you have to be careful when the turbo kicks in, especially in the low gears. My pet peeve with both the MR and the GSR is the gearing. At 110 kilometers an hour, this car is doing close to 3,000 RPM, and that's hurting fuel mileage. But listen, you didn't buy an Evo for its fuel consumption. At just over $40,000, the Evo offers good value for money. That being said, the extra $10,000 for the MR version makes that daily commute just that much easier. Now, you might be thinking about a Mazda Speed 3 or a Focus ST. And keep in mind, those are only 2-wheel drive. And for all you Subaru STI lovers out there, there's an evolution coming. I'm Russ Bond, and this has been the Evo's 2-minute test drive.
Our motoring tip of the week concerns fuel injector cleaners. These are additives that motorists can typically add to their tank at the gas station before they fill up. Now, we've got 3 common ones here today, and what happens as your vehicle gains mileage and over the years of wear and tear, a little bit of fuel dries to the tip of the fuel injector. Every time you shut the engine off, the engine heat dries that fuel on the tip, and it affects the spray pattern of the injector. Also, the fuel itself and oil vapors from the PCV and normal oil consumption in the engine produce carbon in the engine. It takes a long period of time for a little bit of carbon to build up in that engine, and it hurts performance, economy, and emissions on your vehicle. So if your vehicle's not got the same pep, the same throttle response, and maybe the fuel mileage is falling off, these are a good place to start. Now, if we look at the graphic on this container, we can see our fuel injector right here. We can see a good looking spray pattern coming off this injector. Now, as the injector ages and fuel dries on the tip of it, that pattern is not as good as that. It's a little bit more straight and concentrated. It doesn't fan out and it doesn't vaporize and atomize the fuel as well. And that's where your performance falls off. So any of these additives that you put in the tank at the gas pumps will help this situation. Now, if you're buying fuel from the majors, they typically have additives in them, and a good additive package in most cases that will combat this. But if you're buying fuel from the off-brand stations, you're saving a bit of money sometimes. You're getting the octane that you need, but in many cases, they don't have the same additive package, the same detergency, and the same cleaners to keep the engine clean. And over a period of years, you'll have a slow decline in performance of your engine. That's where additives like this can restore the performance of your engine. And that's your motoring tip of the week.
Power is this machine's DNA. Its design has been cautiously refined over the years. This is a 2012 Porsche 911 Carrera S. Is this latest 911 still phenomenally fast? Well, obviously, that's like questioning the entertainment value of a stripper. More importantly, is this 7th generation model quicker than its predecessor? Well, let's find out and take it for a dance. Although the overall width has not increased, the front axle is wider, the wheelbase is 100mm longer, and the roof is lower. New to the 911's interior is this upward inclined center console featured in the Cayenne and Panamera. The instruments have also been angled slightly towards the driver and together create a feeling of being more connected to the road you're thrashing. There are two fundamental questions that need to be answered today. Has its performance improved, and is it a practical sports car? Porsche have refined the 3.8-litre flat six in the S to produce some 15 horses more to 400 brake horsepower and 325 pounds-feet of torque. Coupled with its optional 7-speed PDK transmission, gets you from 0 to 100 in just over 4 seconds. In normal mode, you'll be more than comfortable in day-to-day driving. Engage Sport or Sport Plus, and this wild stallion turns into a beast. Throttle response is more ambitious, the suspension firms up, and it simply feels lighter. Oh, and did I mention that all this power consumes 15% less fuel? So we've seen that with this new 911, although there is 100 more millimeters to its wheelbase, what that means is actually more room in the cabin for the driver. And this thing is still a rocket. And amazingly, it's just as comfortable in day-to-day driving. But I've got a question. What's its growler like? And will people hear me coming? Well, I've got a very good example of just how good this engine sounds. With just a few of those 400 horses, and a simple flick of a switch, you get this. I always like to make it in good time to the course before I'm expected on the first tee. How easy is it to get these clubs in the 911? Ah, there's no boot, that's where the engine is. Right, let's see if they'll fit in the front. Hey, no luck there. So as I've just managed to prove, the 911 is practical. Nearly $2,000 for options like a sunroof and an upgraded Bose sound system does seem a little bit steep. I would have preferred a traditional handbrake as opposed to their electronic one. But overall, Porsche have outdone themselves. They've managed to create a beast that is bigger, yet lighter. More powerful, but more fuel efficient. And overall, all I can say is I'm considering selling my house.
Closed captioning of Motoring 2012 is brought to you by
Greener, fuel efficient, global. This is Chevrolet Now, driving our world forward.
The Chief Medical Officer for the City of Toronto wants to make the city more pedestrian and cyclist friendly, and he uses Vancouver as his paragon. Well, do you know what city in Canada has the highest pedestrian fatality rate? Vancouver! You want to emulate them? One of his plans is to implement a blanket 40-kilometer-an-hour speed limit on main roads, 30K in residential streets. Why? Because he says if you get hit at 40K, you've got a better chance of surviving than at 50K. Well, maybe. But that's not why people are dying. Why is it always the car's fault? We know that 37% of car crash fatalities are caused by drunk drivers. Do you know what the percentage of pedestrian fatalities caused by drunk pedestrians? Exactly the same. They're dying because they're not paying attention or they're drunk. Not because of the car, it's because of the pedestrian. They got their earbuds in, they're texting away. Is there a penalty for impaired walking? There should be. Besides, how do you slow people down? There's not enough police officers in the world to slow down traffic. If the road's designed to be driven at 60K, that's what people are going to do. Want to slow them down? There's one way. One way. Dig a 1 foot wide, 1 foot deep ditch across the road every 100 meters or so. That'll do it. Speed bumps, they're just a challenge to a good suspension. The ditches, that'll slow you down. You say you can't do that? Well, of course you can't do that, because it's not even worth doing. Do you want to save lives? Look at what some communities in Europe are doing. They've taken out all regulation. They've taken out all the stop signs, no sidewalks, no crosswalks, no street lights, nothing. And then the cyclists and the pedestrians and the motorcyclists and the cars and the trucks are all in it together. They've got to pay attention because they have to interact safe. Guess what? Deaths are down and the traffic flow is up. So the answer isn't more regulation, Dr. McEwen. It's less. I'm Jim Kenzie.
You know, it's been a while since I've had as much fun in a car as I've had in the Subaru BRZ. I know it's designed by Toyota. In fact, I think it looks a bit like a Toyota. That rear side looks a bit like a Supra, and maybe a little bit of Celica, someone said, in the front. However, the guts of this vehicle is strictly Subaru. A ton of fun to drive. And yes, it's the same engine found in the Impreza, but they have tweaked it, and believe me, this car is no Impreza. Now, Toyota, or at least Scion, is coming up with the FRS. They say they are identical vehicles. However, each company has tuned the suspension differently, and they're not sharing that information with each other. So it's nice to see that the spirit of competition is alive and well. Before we go, make sure you check us out at motoringtv.com, and we want to hear from you, so get in on the conversation by joining us on Facebook, Twitter, and check out our great video content on our YouTube channel. That's it for now. We'll see you next time out as we continue to bring you more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
We had a hard time categorizing it. We didn't know what segment to put it in because it really is a kind of a category buster.
Motoring 2012 on TSN has been brought to you by Michelin, a better way forward.